You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and today we're going to talk about the furnace, how pressure builds capacity. As this is part of our series, 2026 Best Year Ever. And really, the furnace moment. So what does that mean? Sometimes people talk about a diamond as just a chunk of coal that did well under pressure, right? But the furnace moment, let's start with that. Everyone wants bigger results, right? We always want to be making progress, but few want the pressure that creates. If people were chunks of coal, most people would not want the pressure that it takes to become a diamond, right? 2026 won't reward talent. It will reward capacity. So this word capacity is going to be a theme today. Because what's your capacity? Capacity is built the same way that God forms iron, is heat, pressure, friction, not comfort. Comfort kills. Comfort will kill you. And you'll end up 90 years later on your deathbed and wonder, gosh, I wish I would have tried more things, right? So there's science behind this. Is stress plus recovery equals adaptation. In weightlifting, there's something called the S.A.I.D principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. Well, it doesn't just work with your body. It works with your brain. It works with the pressure that you can put on yourself to do more, to get better, and to look at your vision board and rewrite it and write it out in different categories. Without stress, the brain doesn't create any new neural pathways, right? It's like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's Hebbian learning, which we'll get to in a second. But you have to have stress on it, right? On this. Strength coaches know this. My trainer is always talking about progressive overload. It's the only way that a muscle grows, right? Hopefully the muscles are growing. But with a blacksmith, okay, so a blacksmith iron is heated until the impurities rise and are beaten out. Only then can it hold an edge. Now think about that. Only then can it hold an edge. Okay, so this Hebbian learning, neurons that fire together, wire together, right? So every time that you respond to pressure with strength, your brain builds a faster, stronger neural pathway for resilience. Every time you respond with fear, avoidance, or panic, that becomes an automatic circuitry too. So pressure is literally shaping the architecture of your identity. And this is why exposure to stress done intentionally is the fastest way to rewire a person. Okay, so we're talking all the time about stress relief, but it's being able to take things on that other people can't take on. What's the common denominator of success? The common denominator of success is, according to Albert Gray, a great little pamphlet that's, 100 years old, something like that, maybe 75 years old, is successful people make a habit of doing things unsuccessful people either can't or won't do. They make a habit. Now, he doesn't say make a habit, okay? No, he says that the common denominator of success is that successful people do things that unsuccessful people either can't do or won't do, okay? They identify themselves as somebody who will get things done. All right, so Dan Sullivan, as you know, I'm a huge fan, and he teaches your future is your property. Pressure forces you to stop living in the past and start to live the future that you've chosen. Now, remember the 4 C's. We talked about this in the last episode. Commitment, courage, capability builds confidence. Those 4 C's are the furnace that are starting to heat you up to be molded into the person that you want to become. Commitment puts you in the heat. Like you've made the decision, you're committed. Courage keeps you there. keeps you in the furnace, even when it's hot. Capability emerges only after the hammering, right? And again, we're thinking about forging like a sword or a knife. And then confidence is the sharpening of the edge. So those are our 4 C's here. Tony Robbins talks about it more in state, right? So you have state, story, strategy. The pressure attracts your state first. If you lose your state, you lose the story and the strategy. The furnace trains you to control your state, even when circumstances are chaotic. Okay. So I think one of the things, when I think of the things that I've been blessed with as far as having a rough childhood, is that chaos. Maybe it's hurt me in relationships because I'm comfortable in chaos. I mean, I'm almost like I have a much harder time with what we talked about last time, being still. But life happens for you, not to you. Life happens for you, not to you. That's the furnace theology, right? It builds pressure, the version of you required for the calling, for the job, whatever your purpose is. And so the way that I like to say it is, you don't become strong avoiding pressure. You become strong learning to breathe inside the furnace. God's classroom doesn't have comfy chairs. It has heat. That's how he teaches us, right? All right, so pressure reveals your default operating system. What do I mean by that? Adversity is diagnostic, not destructive. It's going to tell you. Adversity introduces a person to themselves. It's diagnostic. You want it. Pressure exposes your beliefs, your habits, your emotional home, your identity. And what you do under pressure, who you really are, not who you pretend to be. I used to always say to somebody, when the blood hits the floor, I'm the guy you want to turn around and see behind you. Okay. Because win or lose, I'm in. Right. There's a great Instagram scene, and it's Ben Affleck, and I can't remember his last name. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but it's Ben Affleck comes in and Jeremy's sitting on the floor, and he's on a couch. He's his buddy. And he says, I need your help with something. You can't ask me why or who, but we're going to hurt some people. And he says, whose car are we taking? Right? That's the person you want, right? Okay, so let's talk about how Navy SEALs and BUDS instructors say it. Under stress, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of training. Okay, so remember those biosphere trees without wind? They fell down because the wind strengthens their fibers, strengthens their roots. We need the wind. We need the resistance. And Sullivan says pressure reveals whether you're operating out of your past or your future. So are you operating out of your past or your future? If it's your past, then you have fear, you have anxiety, you have all these things, right? If it's the future that you identify with, the identity of being financially free, financially independent, you're not exchanging time for money. Identify as that person. And so most people under pressure revert to their old identity. Leaders use pressure to step into their new identity or their next identity. All right, Tony Robbins says you get what you tolerate, right? Pressure exposes what you've been tolerating in yourself, not anybody else. Nobody else gets to be blamed. It's you. It's me, right? If I'm fat, I made that choice, right? And I identify as that. But pressure doesn't break you, it exposes you. Adversity doesn't break you, it exposes you. And that's the good news, because now you can rebuild the real you stronger in 2026. All right, so what are the 4 types of pressure you must train before 2026? First one, emotional pressure, relationship strain, loneliness, disappointment. Okay, so how do you train that? Response pause in relationships. Breath discipline, naming the emotion, accepting it. And here's the science, 90-second neurochemical emotional cycle. and that's Hansen. Okay, we're going to go through that in a minute. The Hebbian reinforcement. Choosing a calm response rewires emotional circuitry. So here's an example. And I got this, I had this session from this like Asian medicine, Asian healing doctor, right? He's a little bit interesting. And he said that I have two choices. Like, okay, so like, here's the example is I think about this in South Dakota, right? Because I could visualize this happening. It's 30 below zero. You get in your car and it had to stay outside last night for some reason. You try to start your car and nothing. And you're late. You're late to work. Now, you could get really mad. You could get really upset. You could bang the steering wheel. Or you could just laugh. You have that choice, right? Choosing the calm response is how you get that Hebbian reinforcement, right? It helps then to rewire your emotional circuitry so that when stress happens, you just kind of laugh. All right. Financial pressure. Okay. So first of all, that's a scarcity mindset, fear of risk, clinging to control the flow of money. Now you're going to control your banking. You're not going to let somebody else control your money. But the way that you train it is cash flow thinking, assets over labor, IBC discipline. And then think about like the Rockefellers and their cash flow discipline during recessions. Okay. They didn't overdo it, right? They waited, they had patience. And Sullivan says, money goes where confidence flows. Nelson used to say, opportunities find cash. Same thing. Pressure tests your confidence. But how do we get more confidence? Is it the skill set, right? We build confidence. All right, now we have time pressure. Anybody ever feel this? Overcommitment, distraction, reactivity, being reactive, not responsive, reactive. So how do we train that? Well, we talked about that last time. Stillness, clarity, decisive emotion. Okay. It's okay to be emotional, and decisive execution. It's identify the emotion and do it whether you want to do it or not. Here's again, a champion's creed, right? I gave you the common denominator of success. Now I'm going to give you the champion's creed. I will do what I need to do when I need to do it, whether I want to do it or not. Because we're the best at saying, I can do that later, right? We can sell ourselves. So time abundance increases strategic thinking, having more time. And Tony Robbins always says, where the focus goes, energy flows. Pressure steals focus. Training protects it. So we're going to train. All right. Last one, but not the least important, is spiritual pressure. Seasons where God is silent or is pruning us, and surrender, obedience. Here's Jesus, surrendered under pressure, and opens his destiny, right? Sullivan says obstacles are the raw material for innovation. Right. I mean, VODA, right? His VODA cycle. Obstacle is the most important thing. And pressure isn't the enemy. Untrained pressure is the enemy. I mean, yeah, if you're not doing the work, yeah, you're going to feel the pressure and it's going to stink, right? Okay. Let's talk about the capacity equation. How you grow on purpose. And so capacity equals pressure you can hold without losing clarity or character. And growth is measured by how fast you recover. This is why I take all the things that I take from my body to recover, how long you stay clear, and how little you get rattled. Okay. One of my best friends gets rattled easily, but they recover and they do a great job, but they get rattled and they're ready to drop the gloves and ready to go. Right. So your HRV, your heart rate variability, is the number one marker of resilience. So you don't want a big, huge up and down in your heart rate variability. You want steadiness where your heart rate isn't increasing. How many times have you had somebody say something to you, do something to you, put you in a situation, say something to somebody you love, and it gets your heart rate. It's such a race, right? Elite performers train recovery as aggressively as they stress exposure, right? I mean, runners have to recover. Bodybuilders have to recover. And the furnace plus the anvil model, right? You have the heat, which is the stress, the hammer, which is friction, and water is the recovery, right? Now we could get into the biblical part of water and that what that symbolizes, but I'll let you put that together. So if you add the Hebbian principle, I hope I'm saying that right, is every exposure to pressure where you remain present thickens your neural pathways or your resilience pathways. Your brain becomes faster and more efficient at handling adversity. I mean, the first time you have adversity, it sucks. Maybe the last time you have adversity, it sucks, but it doesn't suck as bad. And like Mike Tyson said, you have to learn to love the suck. You have to learn to love the things that are hard. Dan Sullivan says you can only see and your ears can only hear what your brain is looking for. The RAS stuff, right? Capacity training trains your brain to look for solutions, not survival. And then Tony Robbins, he always says, if you can't manage your mind, you can't manage your life. Capacity is mental management under fire. All right, so your 2026 breakthrough is not about doing more. It's about holding more without shaking, right? Have you ever like done the plate hold where you take like a 45-pound plate and you just hold it like this? Now, it's like a bicep exercise, but after a while, you start to shake, all right? But if you do it again, 2 days from then, you let your body recover, then you do it again, then you do it again, then you do it again, and you recover and do it again. Guess what? It won't shake as fast. You will get stronger. Specific adaptation to impose demand, said principle. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you some exercises. I'm going to give you 4 exercises. I'm sorry. Okay. The first one is called the 2-minute furnace. Sit in stillness. Bring up a situation causing pressure in your life. Breathe slowly through the discomfort without fixing it. Okay, so what's the purpose of this? Teaches your nervous system that pressure is not dangerous. And back to that Hebbian thing, it rewires the threat perception. Okay? Again, sit in stillness, bring up a situation in your head, and then breathe slowly through that discomfort of that feeling of it without fixing it. Don't worry about fixing it. Okay, so then the exercise number 2. Choose one daily inconvenience, traffic, waiting for coffee at Starbucks, whatever it is, and practice calm response and gratitude. Hey, thank you so much for that amazing coffee. Took 15 minutes, right? But does that make sense? Calm response, right? When somebody gives you bad news, calm response and great gratitude. Hey, thank you for letting me know that, right? And the purpose of this is it builds emotional load-bearing fibers like roots in a tree. This is state control training, controlling our state. Now, this is not something, anybody that knew me in my 20s and is anybody that I coached in football, baseball, whatever, I was a hothead, right? I mean, I had a chip on my shoulder. I was going to make sure these kids were tougher than anybody else on the field. They might not be better, but they were going to be tougher and they were going to be in better shape. And I'd have moms and dads complain, you're making them run hills and it's dark and we'll pull your car over here with the lights. I mean, instead of complaining, help me find solutions. We ran out of time. I still need 20 minutes of them throwing up on this hill to make them tougher. The thing you'll do to a 6-year-old. No, I'm just kidding. They weren't 6. Full disclosure, I coached my daughter's 4-on-4 soccer team. I know nothing about soccer. Can't play soccer. Okay. But I taught them not to be the bee swarm going all together like that. I forced them to stay apart. We won every game. We killed everybody. But I was so intense, the parents asked me not to be the coach next year. And we won. We won the Pepsi Cup in Colorado at all of Denver. It's like, and I was so like, I didn't understand it. I was like in my, what would I have been, late 20s or something. And I just didn't understand why they didn't want me to coach again. We won. We're undefeated, right? Anyway, that's a whole nother episode. All right. So the third exercise is financial posture check. Ask yourself daily, am I acting out of fear or acting on my vision? Out of fear or on my vision? If it's fear, adjust your strategy. That's it. Accept it. I'm acting out of fear. Break that scarcity reflex. That's the purpose of this exercise. And future-based thinking, muscles activate through this question, right? The future-based thinking muscles activate through this question. All right, last exercise. Hardest one, okay? Surrender reps. Surrender reps. Now, God tells us we have to surrender, right? Write one thing that you'll release today. What's one thing you're just going to release? And then pray, God, shape me in the places pressure reveal. God, shape me in the places pressure reveal. Simple prayer, pretty short. I'm not going to you can't say that prayer every day. Something's wrong. So this is spiritual alignment. That's simple as that. And if you don't believe in God, where I say God, you can say universe. But as Nelson would say, everything that he taught was through the lens of the Bible. Everything I'm teaching is through the lens of my faith, which is rooted 100% in the Bible. So that's spiritual alignment. It's going to make you feel better. Pressure plus release equals spiritual capacity. Pressure plus release, acknowledging I have these issues, God. I surrender them to you. That increases my capacity because God is the king of the universe. He has no limit to his capacity. Okay. You can't pray for strength and avoid the gym that God built for you. Let me say that again. You can't pray for strength and avoid the gym that God built. That makes sense, right? Okay, so here's some real examples. And there's a great book called Relentless by Tim Grover. And he was Michael Jordan's trainer, Kobe Bryant's trainer. Okay, that's the two biggest examples. Kobe Bryant, again, is one of my favorites because he had midnight workouts. Now, I think he started playing in the NBA when he was like 17, 18 years old. It wasn't 19. He was younger than that. He would do midnight workouts, embracing pressure. He wanted to be the guy because it created separation. He stood out from everybody else. Remember this, Winston Churchill became prime minister at 65 and carried the nation through the biggest war of all time. The pressure built him for that moment. If you read about his life or his autobiography. So in my life, pressure from divorce, business, rebuilding life with a forged vision, it didn't destroy it. The pressure didn't destroy it. It changed my vision. But, I am so thankful for the adversity that I went through as a child because it taught me to that I was stronger than I thought I was, not in the beginning, but eventually it did. And it also taught me that I can teach other people how to be strong. I can help them use their adversity, even their trauma, to make them stronger. And if all of a sudden your past and your scars are your superpower, if your past and your scars are your superpower, then who can stop you? And who's like you? No one. So when I say, what's your unique ability? What's your God-given edge? You say, well, I don't have one. How can you not have one? No one else has had your life. Only you. The adversity that you've gone through is yours. No one else has done it. And you could be rich. You could have totally different adversity than me. And I am so grateful God has brought people in my life that have had totally different experiences with adversity. And you know what? It's like walking a mile in somebody else's shoes, right? And then it says, I wear 10.5. How about you? And then he says, we don't have to walk a mile in each other's shoes. We just, like, what he's trying to say is we just have to accept each other, understand each other's adversity and what's happened to them, and respect it. All right. So pressure is not punishment. And remember, 2026 requires a different you, a different identity, a different way. Don't keep doing the same crap and expecting different results. And your job is not to avoid heat. I mean, but stay in that heat long enough to be shaped. Don't panic. 6 demands a stronger container. God is strengthening the container, your capacity. Dan Sullivan likes to say the problem is never the problem. The problem is how you're thinking about the problem, which is basically a way of saying that pressure trains your thinking, right? You think better. And I can tell you, I've done things in my life to help me have clarity and think better. And I've done all these different exercises and I feel better. Even today, I had a great workout this morning at 5 a.m. and I'm looking and I'm thinking, I'm getting more muscle. But then you know what that little negative thing says? Well, are you gaining weight? Are you gaining fat? See, that's the negative. You got to eliminate that. And I just laughed at it. I even told my trainer, I acknowledged it, brought it into the light, right? So Tony Robbins says, peak state under pressure is the ultimate separator. What are we doing? I know it's backwards, but we're breaking away from the herd. That's a separator. A breakaway is a separator. It's your state under pressure that is the ultimate separator. So pressure introduces a man to himself. Like, in the end of that quote, a person to themselves, okay? But the quote is, adversity introduces a man to himself. I don't like to say it that way. I like to say adversity introduces a person to themselves, because it was probably written a long time ago when, man went and did this and, we had these different roles, right? But God uses pressure to introduce you to who you were born to be. And you have to welcome the furnace, because that's where breakaway wealth leaders are forged. People that want to follow this breakaway from the herd, build wealth. Okay. That's why everything is breakaway wealth now, is we are transitioning to breakaway wealth community. And I love this term, breakaway. Let's just break away. Nelson used to say the majority's never been right about anything. So you want to stay with them, right? Majority about your health, about medicine, about anything. So you have to have the courage to step away. And I'm going to wrap this up with, yesterday, I was talking to a woman who's one of the smartest people that I know. And she is trained medically and she is a doctor. And we were talking about ayahuasca, right, in Costa Rica. And then we were talking about peyote. And we were talking about, but it wasn't about whether you should go out and do those things. I'm not recommending that. Okay. Don't go do a hippie ayahuasca thing on the east coast of Florida for a weekend with untrained people. Don't do that. But, or you can, but I don't think it's medically going to help you. But we were talking about these cultures for thousands of years have used these things to create visions, to eliminate blockages that people have in their thinking. Now, whether you believe it or not, you think we just came up, modern medicine and Western medicine just has the patent on all of this stuff, has the only solution? No, this stuff has been around for thousands of years. You think it would be if it didn't work? My point is, be open to different ways of doing things. Be open to being outside the herd. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to wrap it up with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret, which is whatever you think, that's what's going to happen. That's what you're going to become. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. Godspeed.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.